Commander Maya Chun stared at the display screen in front of her, watching 12 massive warships surround Kepler Station like predators circling wounded prey. The ships belonged to the Vector Dominion, and they had appeared without warning just 2 hours ago. Now they floated in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready to fire. "Incoming transmission," a communications officer said quietly. Maya nodded. "Put it through." The screen flickered and a Vector commander appeared. He was tall and imposing, with dark blue skin and 4 eyes that gleamed with cold confidence. His armored uniform was covered in medals that marked countless victories. "Human station," the Vector commander said, his voice deep and formal. "I am Fleet Commander Zethkar of the Dominion. You are surrounded by 12 warships. Your defensive capabilities are minimal. Surrender within 48 hours, and your people will be taken as prisoners. Refuse, and we will destroy your station completely. These are your only options." Maya felt 2,000 pairs of eyes watching her from throughout the station. Civilians, families, children. She had only 150 security personnel and 3 old defense platforms that could barely scratch the paint on a Vector warship. The nearest human fleet was 3 weeks away. By any military standard, this was an impossible situation. "We need time to consider your offer," Maya said calmly. Zethkar's eyes narrowed slightly. "You have 48 hours. We will not negotiate further." The transmission ended. Maya's second-in-command, Lieutenant Rodriguez, leaned close. "Commander, we can't fight them." "Everyone knows it." "Maybe we should." "No." Maya's voice was quiet but firm. She turned to face her bridge crew. "Get me everything we have on Vector psychology, culture, and military doctrine. I want to know how they think, what they value, and what they hate. We have 48 hours, and I intend to use every second." For the next 6 hours, Maya read everything she could find about the Vector. They were a warrior culture, obsessed with honor and proper military conduct. They followed strict rules of engagement and looked down on any species that fought dishonorably. They had conquered 14 worlds, and their military record was perfect. They never lost because they never broke their own rules, and those rules had been tested over centuries of warfare. But Maya found something else in the files. The Vector had an extreme aversion to biological contamination. Their homeworld was nearly sterile, and their immune systems were sensitive. They considered biological warfare to be the ultimate dishonor, something only primitive species would consider. Maya smiled grimly. "Get me Dr. Webb from the biolabs." Dr. Marcus Webb arrived 20 minutes later, looking nervous. He was a thin man in his late 50s, with gray hair and kind eyes. "Commander, I heard about the Vector. Is there anything I can do?" "Yes," Maya said. "I need you to take every pathogen, bacteria, virus, and fungus we have in storage. I need you to breed them, accelerate their growth, and make them as aggressive as possible. I don't care if they're dangerous. In fact, I want them to be dangerous." Dr. Webb's face went pale. "Commander, that's incredibly risky. If any of those organisms escape containment, they won't escape," Maya said, "because we're going to release them intentionally." The doctor stared at her in shock. "That's biological warfare. That's against every treaty we've signed. The Vector will see it as the worst kind of dishonor." "Good," Maya said. "I'm counting on it." Dr. Webb wanted to argue, but something in Maya's eyes stopped him. He nodded slowly and left to begin his work. Maya's next order surprised everyone even more. "Engineering, I want you to rig the waste processing systems. Make them ready to vent everything into space on my command. I want a cloud of frozen sewage surrounding this station." Rodriguez looked horrified. "Commander, you can't be serious." "Deadly serious," Maya said. "We can't beat them with weapons. We don't have the firepower. But we can beat them with disgust, with fear, and with tactics they never expect. The Vector think they're fighting a proper military engagement. They're not. They're fighting humans who are desperate. And desperate humans are the most dangerous things in the galaxy. The hours ticked by. Dr. Webb worked frantically in the biolabs, creating combinations of organisms that would have terrified any epidemiologist. Engineering prepared the waste systems. Maya's security teams set up additional surprises throughout the station. And the Vector fleet waited patiently, confident in their inevitable victory. When 30 hours had passed, the Vector fleet moved closer to scan for hidden weapons. That was exactly what Maya had been waiting for. Now, she said quietly, the waste processing systems vented everything into space. Thousands of gallons of frozen sewage and biological waste erupted from the station, forming a disgusting cloud that drifted toward the Vector ships. The alien fleet immediately stopped moving, clearly surprised by this bizarre tactic. "Detonate the charges," Maya ordered. Small explosions rippled through the cloud, sending chunks of frozen waste in every direction. Some of it splattered across the Vector ship's sensor arrays and viewing ports, coating them in human waste. The reaction from the Vector fleet was immediate and visceral. Their ships pulled back quickly, breaking formation for the first time. Maya could imagine the disgust and horror on their bridge crew's faces. A new transmission came through. Commander Zethkar appeared on screen, and his face was twisted with rage and revulsion. You dare commit such a dishonorable act? You are savages. Primitives. We're survivors," Maya said calmly. "And we have 36 more hours to come up with even better ideas. I suggest you use that time to clean your ships." Zethkar's 4 eyes blazed with fury. "There will be no more negotiations. No more mercy. You are war criminals, and we will destroy you all. The Dominion will make an example of this station and everyone on it." "Good," Maya said softly. "Angry enemies make mistakes." She cut the transmission. Rodriguez stared at her. "Commander, you just made them furious. They're going to come at us with everything." Maya nodded slowly, watching the Vector fleet regroup in the distance. "Yes, they will. But now they're not thinking clearly. They're not following their perfect military doctrine. They're emotional, and that gives us a chance." She turned to her crew. "Prepare for Phase 2. This is just the beginning." Outside the station, the Vector fleet began charging their weapons, their careful formation abandoned in favor of aggressive positioning. They were no longer content to wait 48 hours. They wanted Blood Dot, and Maya Chun was ready to give them a fight they would never forget. The Vector attack came faster than Maya expected. Within 12 hours of her sewage stunt, their warships opened fire. The first salvo of energy weapons tore through 2 of the station's 3 defense platforms. Explosions rippled across the hull as sections depressurized. Alarms screamed throughout Kepler Station. "Hull breaches on Deck 7, 12, and 19, Rodriguez shouted over the noise. "Casualties coming in. Medical teams are overwhelmed." Maya gripped her command chair as the station shook from another impact. Through the viewport, she could see Vector warships moving into attack positions, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. This was it. This was the real assault. "Open all broadcast channels," Maya ordered. "Every frequency we have, including civilian bands." "Commander?" Her communications officer looked confused. "Do it," Maya said firmly. When the channels opened, Maya began to speak. But she wasn't speaking to her own crew. She was speaking in perfect Vector language, a tongue she had learned years ago during diplomatic training. "People of the Vector Dominion," she said, "I am Commander Maya Chun of Kepler Station. Right now, your military is attacking this station. Let me show you what your warriors are shooting at." She switched the feed to show footage from the civilian sections. Families huddling in emergency shelters. children crying as their parents held them, medical staff trying to save wounded civilians. Then she cut to external cameras showing vector weapons smashing into those same sections. "This is the honor your commanders speak of," Maya continued in vector. "This is the glory of the Dominion. Killing those who cannot fight back. Destroying families. Tell me, is this what you teach your young ones? Is this the warrior code you are so proud of?" She could see the impact immediately. The Vector military used the same communication channels for coordination, which meant every ship in the fleet was receiving her broadcast. More importantly, so was the entire Vector civilian population back in their home systems. "Commander," Zethkar's face appeared on her screen moments later. "You manipulative creature. You dare use our own people against us?" "I'm just showing them the truth," Maya said. "You're the one who chose to fire on civilians." The Vector commander's expression was furious, but Maya could also see something else there. Uncertainty. Worry. The broadcast was working. Back in Vector space, public opinion would be turning. Their warrior culture valued honor above all else, and what Maya was showing looked very much like a dishonorable massacre. The Vector weapons fire stopped. Maya watched as the enemy ships held their positions, clearly receiving new orders from their government. She had bought more time, but she knew it wouldn't last. The Vector leadership would find a way to spin this, to justify their actions. They always did. "Commander," Rodriguez said quietly, "we just received new intelligence. The Vector High Command has ordered Zethkar to capture the station intact or face disgrace. They can't afford to completely destroy us now, not with their whole population watching." Maya nodded. That was exactly what she had hoped for. "Then let's give them a way to save face. Open a channel to their fleet." When Zethkar appeared on screen again, Maya spoke before he could. "Commander, your people are watching. My people are watching. Let's end this the honorable way. Single combat. Your best warrior against ours. If you win, we surrender the station. If we win, you withdraw for 1 month to allow evacuation." Zethkar's eyes widened. This was a traditional challenge, one his culture could not refuse without looking weak. "You would face our champion in combat?" "I would," Maya said. "Very well," Zethkar said slowly. "We will send our finest battlemaster. He has never been defeated. Prepare your warrior." The transmission ended. Rodriguez turned to Maya in panic. "Commander, who are you going to send? None of our security personnel can beat a Vector battlemaster. They're genetically enhanced for combat." "I know," Maya said. "That's why I'm not sending a soldier." She opened a communication line. "Dr. Webb, please report to the bridge." When the elderly scientist arrived, looking confused and exhausted from his work in the biolabs, Rodriguez understood immediately. "No, Commander, you can't." "That's brilliant," Maya finished. "Dr. Webb, how would you like to save everyone on this station?" The doctor looked between Maya and Rodriguez, completely lost. "Commander, I'm not a fighter. I can barely walk upstairs without getting winded." "You won't need to fight," Maya said. "You just need to survive for 10 minutes. She explained her plan, and Dr. Webb's expression shifted from confusion to horror to grim determination. "That's absolutely insane," he said finally. "Yes," Maya agreed. "Will you do it?" Dr. Webb thought about all the children on the station, all the families, all the lives depending on this moment. "I'll do it." The combat arena was a sealed compartment on the station's lower levels. Maya had chosen it carefully. The Vector didn't know that she had flooded the room with every aggressive pathogen Dr. Webb had created, all of them specifically designed to attack Vector biology. The air was thick with invisible death. The Vector champion arrived through the airlock. He was massive, over 7 feet tall, with muscles that rippled beneath his blue skin. His four eyes scanned the room with predatory focus. He carried no weapons because the combat was meant to be hand-to-hand. As per tradition, Dr. Webb stood on the other side of the room, looking small and fragile by comparison. He wore normal clothes and had a concealed rebreather hidden under his collar. He had been inoculated against everything in the room. The Vector champion, bound by honor to refuse protective equipment, relied on his natural constitution. "Begin," Maya's voice echoed through the room. The Vector warrior charged immediately, moving with frightening speed. Dr. Webb did the only thing he could do. He ran. He dodged behind equipment, scrambled over crates, and did everything possible to stay away from the champion. To the Vector watching, it looked like cowardice. But Maya was counting seconds. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. At 6 minutes, the Vector warrior stumbled slightly. His breathing became labored. At 7 minutes, his skin began to show dark patches. The pathogens were working. At 8 minutes, he fell to one knee, gasping. His immune system was fighting a war it couldn't win. At 9 minutes, he collapsed completely, unconscious but alive. Dr. Webb stood in the center of the room, breathing hard through his hidden rebreather, looking down at the fallen warrior. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Commander Zethkar's voice came through the speakers, tight with barely controlled rage. You used biological weapons. In single combat. This is beyond dishonor. This is an abomination. You agreed to single combat, Maya replied calmly. You never specified the conditions. We chose the battlefield. That's standard military doctrine, even by your own rules. We will withdraw as agreed, Zethkar said, each word sharp with fury. But know this, human. When we return, there will be no honor, no rules, no mercy. We will bring our full fleet and erase you from existence. Good, Maya said softly. We're better at that kind of fighting anyway. The Vector fleet began to pull back, maintaining formation as they withdrew beyond weapon range. But Maya knew this was far from over. They would return in force, probably within a month. And when they did, no tricks or clever tactics would be enough to stop them. She had bought time. Now she needed to use it. Begin evacuation procedures, Maya ordered. Get every civilian off this station. I want transports running constantly. And someone get me a direct line to Fleet Command. We need reinforcements, and we need them now. As her crew rushed to obey, Maya watched the Vector ships disappear into the distance. She had humiliated them twice now. They would come back with overwhelming force, and they would want revenge. Let them come, she thought. Humans didn't start this fight, but they would finish it. 2 weeks passed in a blur of desperate activity. Maya watched transport after transport leave Kepler Station, carrying civilians to safety. Families she had sworn to protect were finally escaping the coming storm. But not everyone left. 500 people volunteered to stay behind. Security personnel, engineers, scientists. People who understood what was coming and chose to stand anyway. Final transport is away, Commander, Rodriguez reported. Just as now. Maya nodded, staring at the tactical display. Intelligence reports were grim. The Vector weren't sending 12 ships this time. They were sending 47, including 3 massive siege dreadnoughts capable of cracking planets. They planned to make an example of Kepler Station, broadcasting the destruction across the galaxy as a warning to anyone who dared resist the Dominion. They'll be here in 6 hours, Maya said quietly. Status on the Prometheus protocol? Dr. Webb looked up from his console, his face haggard from weeks of sleepless work. The reactor modifications are complete. When you give the word, I can trigger a controlled fusion cascade. The entire station will become a 50-megaton bomb. But Commander, Once I start the sequence, we'll only have 5 minutes to evacuate. And there's nowhere to evacuate to. I know, Maya said. She had made peace with that reality days ago, but she wasn't ready to die just yet. She had one more card to play, one more deception to weave. Begin transmitting the encrypted files. Make it look like we're trying to hide them. For the past week, Maya's communications team had been accidentally leaking classified information about the Prometheus protocol. They made it look like frantic attempts to secure data about a secret weapon system, a devastating new technology hidden in the station's core. The Vector had intercepted every transmission, just as Maya intended. They're taking the bait, her intelligence officer reported. Vector communications indicate they believe we have a super weapon on board. They're changing their strategy from total destruction to capture and seizure. Perfect, Maya thought. Make them want the station intact. Make them bring their forces inside. The station was now a maze of death traps. Every corridor had been rigged with explosives. Life support systems could be weaponized to flood sections with deadly gases or extreme temperatures. The biolabs had produced even more aggressive pathogens stored in fragile containers that would break during any firefight. And at the center of it all, the reactor hummed with barely contained energy, ready to tear itself apart on Maya's command. The Kepler station wasn't a defensive position anymore. It was bait wrapped in razors. Vector fleet dropping out of faster-than-light travel, the sensor officer announced. 47 ships confirmed. They're all launching boarding craft. Maya watched the display as hundreds of small craft detached from the Vector warships, each carrying soldiers. They weren't bombarding the station from a distance. They were coming aboard, exactly as she'd hoped. All personnel, fall back to the command center, Maya ordered. Seal all bulkheads behind you. It's time. The Vector boarding parties landed in multiple docking bays. Over 2,000 soldiers poured into the station, their weapons ready, spreading through the corridors in tactical formations. They found no resistance. The humans had retreated, leaving the station seemingly abandoned except for the command center where Maya and her people had barricaded themselves. Commander Zethkar led the assault personally. He moved through the station with his elite guard, searching for the Prometheus weapon and the humans who had humiliated him twice. His pride demanded he end this personally. All teams, report, Zethkar ordered through his communication system. The reports came back quickly. The Vector had secured most of the station. No significant resistance. The humans were trapped in the command center. Victory seemed certain. Maya waited in the command center, watching the security feeds as Vector soldiers spread throughout her station. She counted the positions, calculated the numbers. Not yet. She needed more of them inside. Commander Zethkar is demanding we surrender, Rodriguez said. His forces are preparing to breach the command center. Tell him we're considering his terms, Maya said calmly. We need 5 more minutes. Those 5 minutes felt like hours. More Vector soldiers entered the station. More ships docked to deploy additional troops. The alien fleet was committing everything to this assault, confident that the humans were defeated. Then Maya saw what she was waiting for. Commander Zethkar himself had entered Docking Bay 7 with his command staff. Almost all the Vector leadership was now aboard the station. Now, Maya said quietly, execute trap protocols. Throughout the station, 30 volunteers emerged from their hiding places. Each one had stayed behind at a critical position, waiting for this moment. They knew they wouldn't survive. They had accepted that. In Section 12, Engineer Ramirez opened the coolant valves, flooding the corridor with superheated plasma. 50 Vector soldiers died screaming. In Section 18, Security Officer Chun triggered explosive decompression, sucking an entire Vector platoon into space. In the biolabs, Dr. Webb's assistant Sarah released every pathogen they had created, then sealed herself in a containment suit and waited for the end. All across Kepler Station, the traps activated. Explosions, fires, decompression, radiation leaks, biological weapons. The Vector boarding force, spread thin throughout the station, was being systematically slaughtered. Maya watched the security feeds as her people gave their lives. She memorized each face, each name. These weren't just soldiers following orders. These were volunteers who chose to stand between their species and extinction. Heroes who would never be properly mourned because no one would survive to tell their stories. Command center breach in 30 seconds, Rodriguez warned. The Vector were cutting through the final doors. Maya could hear the whine of plasma torches, feel the heat bleeding through the metal. The remaining defenders raised their weapons, ready for a last stand that would buy nothing but seconds. Then her communications officer gasped. "Commander." Jump signatures. Multiple contacts emerging from faster than light. The tactical display lit up with new icons. Ships. Human ships. The fleet had arrived early, pushing their engines past safety limits to get here in time. "It's Admiral Kowalski's task force," the officer said, voice shaking with sudden hope. 23 warships. Maya felt a surge of emotion she quickly suppressed. The fleet was here, but the situation was still desperate. The Vector controlled her station and had thousands of soldiers aboard. Both sides were now locked in a standoff, and Maya held the ultimate trump card. She opened a channel to both fleets, her voice steady and cold. "This is Commander Maya Chun. I am activating the Prometheus protocol in 60 seconds. The station reactor will undergo a controlled fusion cascade, creating a 50 megaton explosion. Everyone aboard will die, including 2,000 Vector soldiers and all of your command staff." Admiral Kowalski's face appeared on one screen, shocked. "Commander, stand down. We can negotiate." "No negotiations," Maya interrupted. "Commander Zethkar, you have 60 seconds to order all your ships to detach from this station and withdraw beyond weapon range. If you don't, I detonate. Your fleet will be caught at close range by the explosion. You'll lose ships, soldiers, and officers, including yourself." Zethkar's image appeared on another screen. His 4 eyes were wide with disbelief. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't kill your own people. I've watched 30 of my people die in the last 10 minutes to set this trap," Maya said. "Do you really think I'm bluffing? You've seen what humans are willing to do. We don't surrender. We don't follow your rules. And we definitely don't care about dying if we can take our enemies with us." The counter ticked down. 50 seconds. 45 seconds. "Commander Chun," Admiral Kowalski said urgently, "there has to be another way." "There isn't, sir," Maya said. "Either I do this and we lose 500 people but win the battle, or we hesitate and lose your entire fleet when the Vector regroup. This is the only play that saves humanity." 40 seconds. 35 seconds. Zethkar was calculating. Maya could see it in his eyes. He was reviewing everything he had learned about humans over these brutal weeks. The sewage attack. The biological warfare. The willingness to sacrifice. 30 seconds remained on the countdown. Maya's finger hovered over detonation control, steady and ready. Around her in the command center, her crew stood silent. They had made their choice. They were prepared to die. Commander Zethkar's face on the screen showed something Maya had never seen from a Vector before. Fear. Not fear of death. His warrior culture had prepared him for that. Fear of uncertainty. Fear that he had misjudged these strange primates who fought like nothing he had ever encountered. 20-5 seconds. Emergency detachment. Zethkar's voice cracked across all Vector frequencies. "All ships, emergency protocols. Move." The Vector fleet exploded into panicked activity. Ships began emergency separation from the station, their engines flaring to life. Soldiers aboard the station rushed toward the docking bays, abandoning equipment and positions in their desperate scramble to escape. 20 seconds. 15 seconds. The massive warships pulled away from Kepler Station like frightened animals fleeing a predator. Their careful formations dissolved into chaos. Some ships collided in their haste, scraping hulls and damaging systems. This was the legendary Vector military, and they were running. 10 seconds. All ships clear of blast radius. Maya's sensor officer reported. 5 seconds. Maya's hand remained on the detonation control. Every Vector eye in the fleet was watching, waiting to see if she would do it. Waiting to see if humans really were insane enough to kill themselves, just to prove a point. Maya lifted her hand away from the control. The station didn't explode. Silence filled the command center as everyone slowly realized they were still alive. All ships, Admiral Kowalski's voice rang out across the void. Targeting solutions locked. Vector Fleet, you are in a tactically disadvantageous position with cold engines and broken formation. Surrender immediately, or we will open fire. The tables had turned completely. The Vector Fleet, disorganized and vulnerable, faced a prepared human force that held every advantage. Commander Zethkar appeared on screen again, and his expression was a mixture of rage, humiliation, and resignation. You. He struggled to find words. You were willing to die. All of you. Just to create this moment. We were, Maya said simply. And you believed it because you've seen what we're capable of. That's the difference between us, Commander. You fight for honor and glory. We fight to survive. And we'll use any weapon, any tactic, any sacrifice necessary. Zethkar's shoulders sagged slightly. His military career was over. His fleet was defeated. Everything he had believed about Vector superiority had been shattered by these humans and their brutal, dishonorable, effective tactics. We surrender, he said quietly. No, Maya said, and everyone on both sides looked surprised. You're going to withdraw. Take your fleet and return to the Dominion. You're not our prisoners. Admiral Kowalski's face showed confusion. Commander Chun, we have them. We should... With respect, sir, let me finish, Maya interrupted gently. She turned back to Zethkar. You came here expecting an easy victory. You found only death, deception, and defeat. We could destroy you now, but we won't. I want you to return home. I want you to tell your people exactly what happened here. Zethkar's 4 eyes narrowed. Why? Because dead martyrs inspire enemies to fight harder, Maya said. But survivors who tell stories of defeat, they make enemies think twice before attacking. You're going to be our message to the galaxy, Commander. You're going to tell every species out there that humans don't fight fair. That we'll use biology, psychology, physics, and even our own deaths as weapons. That, when we're cornered, we become more dangerous than when we're strong. She paused, letting her words sink in. But I'm going to give you one more thing to think about. One more thing to tell your people. Maya nodded to Dr. Webb, who stepped forward nervously. During the weeks of preparation, we engineered a specialized virus. Non-lethal, incredibly subtle. Every Vector soldier who boarded this station has been infected with it. Right now, it's rewriting small portions of your DNA. Zethkar's face went rigid with shock. What have you done? We've added human genetic markers to your DNA, Dr. Webb explained, his voice apologetic but firm. Nothing harmful. You won't even notice any effects. But now you're carrying human genes. All of you. 2,000 of your soldiers are walking around with human DNA in their cells. The implications crashed through the Vector fleet like a shockwave. Maya could see it on Zethkar's face. The horror. The violation. The question that would haunt every single one of those soldiers. "We got inside you at the molecular level," Maya said quietly. "And you never knew until we told you. Think about that, Commander. Think about what else we might be capable of. What else we might have already done that you don't know about." The psychological warfare was complete. The Vector wouldn't just fear human weapons now. They would fear human cunning, human unpredictability, human willingness to cross any line. They would spend years wondering what other tricks and traps the humans have prepared. They would never feel safe again. "Go," Maya said. "Take your fleet and leave. Tell your Dominion that humanity is not prey. We're the species that fights like cornered Deathworlders. We're the species that turns our own stations into bombs. We're the species that will do absolutely anything to survive." Commander Zethkar said nothing. He simply cut the transmission. Minutes later, the Vector fleet began to withdraw, their ships limping away into the darkness of space. They had come to conquer. They left defeated, humiliated, and fundamentally changed at the genetic level. Admiral Kowalski's face appeared on Maya's screen. "That was one hell of a gamble, Commander." "Yes, sir," Maya said tiredly. "Would you really have detonated with your people still on board?" Maya looked around at her crew. At Rodriguez, who had questioned her tactics but followed her orders anyway. At Dr. Webb, who had committed acts that violated his every ethical principle. At the faces of people who had been willing to die because she asked them to. "Every single time, sir," she said softly. "That's what makes the tactic work. They have to believe we're capable of anything. Because we are." The Admiral's expression was unreadable. "We'll need to have a long conversation about your methods, Commander. What you did here, it's going to cause debates for years." "I know," Maya said. "But we won. And sometimes that's all that matters." The transmission ended. Maya slumped in her command chair, suddenly feeling the weight of everything she had done. The 30 volunteers who had died. The lives she had gambled. The lines she had crossed. Victory didn't feel glorious. It felt heavy. "Commander," Rodriguez said gently, "the crew wants to say something." Maya looked up. Every person in the command center was standing at attention, watching her with expressions of respect, gratitude, and understanding. They had seen her make impossible choices. They had watched her sacrifice her own humanity to save theirs. "We followed you into hell," Rodriguez said, "and you brought us back out. That's all we need to know." Maya felt tears threatening but pushed them back. There would be time to break down later. "Get me damage control teams. We have a station to repair and 30 people to honor properly." As her crew returned to their stations, Maya pulled up the security footage from the final battle. She watched each of the 30 volunteers make their sacrifices again. She memorized their actions, their courage. These were the real heroes. Not her with her brutal tactics and psychological warfare. Them with their quiet willingness to give everything. 3 weeks later, Kepler Station was functional again. The Vector Dominion had sued for a ceasefire, unwilling to risk another encounter with human tactics. Throughout the galaxy, other species heard the story of Kepler Station. Some were horrified by human brutality. Others were impressed by human ingenuity. But all of them learned the same lesson. Humans don't fight fair. When cornered, they weaponize everything. Biology, psychology, their own deaths. They make defensive stands into nightmares for attackers. They turn their weaknesses into traps and their desperation into strength. In the halls of the Vector Dominion, they stopped calling humans the weak primates. They started calling them the ones who fight without honor. It was meant as an insult. The humans wore it as a badge of pride. Maya stood in the rebuilt memorial hall, looking at the wall of names. 30 volunteers who had given everything. Above their names, a single inscription had been carved. They fought without honor, without mercy, and without hesitation. They fought like humans. And they won. Maya placed her hand on the wall, feeling the cold metal under her palm. "Thank you," she whispered. "You'll never be forgotten." Outside the station, human ships patrolled the space lanes. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Humanity might be young. They might be technologically behind. They might lack the honor codes and warrior traditions of older species. But they had something more dangerous than any of that. They had the desperate cunning of a species that had clawed its way up from a harsh world. They had the willingness to do whatever it took to survive. They had the ability to look at an impossible situation and find a way to win anyway. The galaxy had wanted to see what humans were capable of when pushed to the edge. Kepler Station had shown them. And now, no one wanted to push again. Maya Shun left the memorial hall and returned to her command center. There would be other battles, other desperate situations, other impossible choices. But she was ready. Humans were always ready. Because when your back is against the wall and all seems lost, that's when humans become most dangerous. That's when they stop following the rules and start rewriting them. That's when they show the galaxy what it really means to be human. And the galaxy, having seen Kepler Station, would never make the mistake of underestimating humanity again.